guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another UFC preview and predictions. The main event this weekend is the former champion Robert Whittaker taking on Kelvin Gastelum. It was a fight that's supposed to happen 2 years ago, but it is finally happening in the UFC Apex in what will likely be the final UFC Fight Night card, let's hope, in the UFC Apex, because we're going back to full crowds next week in Jacksonville, Florida. But for now, we've still got Gastelum and Whittaker, and if Robert Whittaker can win this fight, we will most likely be looking at him getting a rematch against the champion Israel Adesanya. If Kelvin Gastelum wins, you're likely looking at a Marvin Vettori versus Israel Adesanya rematch. But again, that is later on in this card. And folks, if you have not yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below for more UFC on the channel. Also, we posted a Bellator predictions yesterday with Vadim Nemkov and Phil Davis for the Bellator Light Heavyweight Championship. Go check that video out if you have not yet. And now let's get on to this UFC card. So we are starting off this 12-fight card here with Anthony Birchak and Tony Gravely. We will start first with Anthony Birchak. So earlier this year, he was supposed to have a fight against Johnny Eduardo. That fight did get canceled. It was supposed to be last month. It was going to be on a fight night. Brunson Holland didn't happen because Johnny Eduardo had to pull out of that one. But Birchak is back again in his second run here with the UFC. Started off the second run with a loss to Gustavo Lopez by rear naked choke on the Santos Teixeira card in Las Vegas. Lost that one in the first round. And then his first run in the UFC kicked off the loss by a heel hook. Then he went on to beat Joe Soto, lost to Thomas Almeida, and then won another fight, and then went to Rizin. Went 0-3 in Rizin, won in Combate, won in LFA, and then got another shot in the Ultimate Proving Ground, of course, the UFC. Birchak coming into this fight with a record of 15-7. Birchak known for his really good wrestling. Now, in the Gustavo Lopez fight, I thought he was going to be able to use his wrestling to his advantage, get that fight in the ground, and really just work on Gustavo Lopez, who at the time, we didn't really think his ground game was that great. Turns out, Gustavo Lopez comes in there, gets the submission win over Anthony Birchak, and of course Gustavo Lopez most recently losing to Adrian Yanez, but still Birchak losing to Gustavo Lopez, and it was a good win for Lopez. And yeah, again, Birchak, good wrestler, didn't really get a showcase of that much in the Lopez fight because Lopez got him to the ground and Lopez did finish him on the ground. Both guys obviously BJJ black belts, but again, there are levels to this game. So that's Anthony Birchak. Let's talk about his opponent here, Tony Gravely. Okay, so sorry if I spoiled the prediction. Tony Gravely is going to win this fight. I don't know how Anthony Birchak is going to win this one. Gravely's a better wrestler. He's a better stand-up fighter. All around, Gravely's just the better fighter. I mean, his fight against Geraldo de Freitas, won that fight by split decision in November. That was on the Paul Felder, Rafael dos Anjos card. That was not a split decision. Tony Gravely won that fight pretty convincingly, I thought. And before that, he lost to Brett Johns in his first fight of the promotion. Tough fight, though. I mean, again, you make your way into the UFC, and you gotta fight Brett Johns first. Pretty tough. Before that, he beat Ray Rodriguez in the Contender Series, and that's how, of course, he got his start into the UFC. And before that, he was the CES Bantamweight Champion. Also fought in King of the Cage as well, and in M1. He did win the King of the Cage Championship too against Draco Rodriguez, another UFC fighter who most recently did lose to Amen Zahabi, but still a pretty solid fighter in Draco Rodriguez. Tony Gravely, I think, is the better wrestler out of the two. Him and Anthony Birchak. Don't get me wrong, Birchak is a very good wrestler. He does have the NCAA experience. I believe he was D2. Yes, he was. But still, Gravely's wrestling looked good in his last fight. Looked very good against Geraldo de Freitas. Has been pretty solid over his last couple fights. And the stand-up game for Tony Gravely is a lot better than Anthony Birchak as well. And I know I kind of hyped up Tony Gravely's wrestling, said it was better than Birchak's. Okay, that might have been... Alright, that might have been going a little bit too far. Birchak's wrestling is very solid, but I just think all around, man, Gravely, if this one hits the mat, I like Tony Gravely in this fight. I think the jiu-jitsu is a little bit better than Birchak. Now, wrestling, if it was a straight-up wrestling match, maybe you do give the advantage to Anthony Birchak, but Gravely, again, a very good MMA wrestler. His striking's very good, can use his takedowns to set up his strikes. I like Tony Gravely in this fight. Do I think he gets a finish? It's tough to say. I'm going to go with the decision, just a safe pick here with Gravely. Going to win this one by decision. Should be a good fight, but I think Gravely picks up the win to start off this card. So next up, we've got Josiane Nunes taking on Zara Fairn. Let's start first here with Josiane Nunes making her UFC debut in this fight. Currently holding a record of 7-1. So far in Nunes' career, she's been fighting in the independent circuit in Brazil, and Yeah, her opponents have been not very good. All right, so her last win was a solid win. It was in November of last year. She won her fight in the second round against a 4-0 fighter. All right, whatever. Before that, she beats Dione Barbosa, fighter who was 3-0 at the time. Cool. Before that, fighter's 0-1, 1-0 before that, 0-6 before that, 1-3 before that. She fights Tyler Santos. Okay, sure. Top 15 fighter in the weight class. So that's her only loss. Josiane Nunes is, of course, to Tyler Santos. And before that, she first win is in 2013. She beats Eliane Albuquerque. 6-1 fighter at the time. So not a bad win right there. But yeah, it's just tough. But like, it's kind of like Talia Santos, right? Talia Santos comes into the UFC. She's fighting all these fighters with like 0-16, 0-0. For example, Josiane Nunes was 1-0 when she fought Talia Santos without Santos' pro debut, so it's acceptable. But it's just tough to gauge how good Josiane Nunes truly is, just because looking at the competitors she has fought so far in her career, just not great. So again, what we've seen out of Josiane Nunes, though, really good striking. I mean, she's able to get a lot of finishes in her fights. Her last 4 wins are all by KO. 3 of them are in the second round. 1 of them is in the first round. So Josiane Nunes, against those fighters in the regional promotions in Brazil, looks amazing. But can she do the same thing against Zara Fairn, who's fought some of the best competition in the UFC? Well, maybe at 145. She's fought Megan Anderson. She's fought Felicia Spencer. Now, this fight is at 135. Fairn is going back down for this fight on a 2-fight losing streak. So Josiane Nunes, again, tremendous striking. We really haven't seen the ground game. There's not much tape of her online, for being real, but what there is out there, what is out there shows that Josiane Nunes, incredible striking. A lot of power. But again, the fighter she's fought, not very good. So that's Josiane Nunes. Let's talk about her opponent here in Zara Fairn. Yeah, this fight's just so hard to call because Zara Fairn, her 2 fights in the UFC, she was brought in basically to fight at 145. First fight, she loses to Megan Anderson by triangle choke, UFC 243. I mean, if you get submitted by Megan Anderson, who is just not a very good ground fighter, it's kind of tough. Then after that, they put her in there with Felicia Spencer in a co-main event in Norfolk, Virginia. Like, what are we doing? She gets ground and pounded in the first round. Felicia Spencer takes her down, because if you see Megan Anderson's able to take someone down, I mean, I think Felicia Spencer would probably do the same. Of course, that happened. Spencer took her down, finished her on the ground in that same night, or on that same night. Megan Anderson beat Norma Dumont, who is Norma Dumont out the UFC now after she missed weight? I don't know. But Zara Fairn loses both those fights. Those were both at 145. She's now going back down to 135 for this fight, and she hasn't been at 135 since 2017 at Cage 40. That would be a promotion in Finland. So it has been a while for Zara Fairn fighting at 135. We have seen her at catchweight in the past, at Ladies Fight Night 7 in Poland. She fought at 141 catchweight. So just kind of weird results we've gotten out of Zara Fairn in the past. Again, the 2 fights that do stick out, though, are against the former title challengers in Megan Anderson and in Felicia Spencer. But outside the UFC, Zara Fairn's striking has been pretty solid. But again, you just don't know about the opponents that she is getting in Poland and that she is getting in Finland and France. We just do not know. Probably, I mean, this is like the most unknown fight on the card. It's so tough to call. Don't put any money on it. That's all I'm gonna say. I guess if I have to make a pick here, I'm gonna go with Josiane Nunes. Yeah, I just don't know. You don't know what you're gonna get out of this fight. It's a relatively, Josiane Nunes, relatively unknown fighter, and Zara Fairn, I mean, other than those 2 fights in the UFC, which she didn't do much in, did not get a lot of offense in those 2 fights, I just don't know what to expect. Zara Fairn can come out here, get a finish. Same thing with Josiane Nunes. Both of them do get a lot of finishes. When they do win, they only win by TKO. So will we get a TKO finish in this one? I don't think so. I'll go decision, Josiane Nunes. Not confident at all, but that's what we're going with. Now we've got Meerschaert taking on Bartosz Fabinski. I'm going to start first with Bartosz Fabinski. His last fight was a loss to Andre Muniz. Did get armbarred in that fight in the first round in Overeem Sakai in September. He lost that one pretty quickly. And before that, he beat Darren Stewart in Cage Warriors, but it was a UFC sanctioned fight, so it counts on the UFC record. I put it on the screen against Darren Stewart. Pretty damn dominant. Cage Warriors 113 as soon as the pandemic was starting in Manchester, England. Yeah, Fabinski gets the job done, takes down Darren Stewart multiple times in that fight, just bloodies him up. It's a pretty good win for Bartosz Fabinski over in Cage Warriors. And before that, he did lose a fight by guillotine choke over in Argentina on the Magny Ponzinibbio card. And before that, won a 3-5 winning streak to start his UFC career off. The most notable win, I think, probably being over Mel Meek. Won that fight by unanimous decision over in Germany on the Shogun and Anthony Lionheart Smith card. Bartosz Fabinski coming into this fight, the record of 15 wins and 4 losses. His stand-up game is pretty solid, but in the UFC so far, his wrestling's been on and on, and off and on, and his grappling's been off and on as well. I mean, we've seen Bartosz Fabinski go in there and get a lot of takedowns, work on his opponents. Prime example, the Darren Stewart fight. Darren Stewart is a pretty solid ground fighter, but Bartosz Fabinski went in there and dominated him on the ground in their fight at Cage Warriors. So Fabinski, just a very tough fighter to call how he's gonna fare in this fight. Against Meerschaert, obviously he's going to have the striking advantage. Meerschaert, let's be honest with ourselves, not a very good striker, but his ground game is very good. And I don't think Fabinski's going to be able to stop his ground game. So, honestly, this is a styles fight. And I know Meerschaert has not been great in the past, but I see this fight going pretty one-sided. I mean, like, I think whoever establishes their, like, if Bartosz Fabinski's gonna win, I think he's gonna win this one in the feet. If Meerschaert's gonna win this one, he's gonna win on the ground, kind of like all Meerschaert fights. But when Meerschaert does lose, he gets stopped. He gets stopped pretty early. Khamzat Chimaev, 17 seconds. All right, Khamzat's gonna do that to everyone. Hopefully, we do get Khamzat Chimaev back in July. But yeah. Khamzat put him away in 17 seconds. And then before that, he beat Ian Heinisch by TKO in about a minute at UFC 250. Before that, he got a win over Darren win on UFC 248. Won that one by rear naked choke. And then before that, lost to Eric Ayers by split decision. Beat Trevin Giles by guillotine. Lost to Kevin Holland. Lost to Jack Hermanson. Beat Oscar Peota. Beat Eric Spicely. Lost to Thiago Santos. And that's really been the UFC run so far for Gerald Meerschaert. Yeah, it's just tough to call how this one's going to go, because Meerschaert on the feet has not been great. He's never really been great, for being real, right? But his ground game is always good. Gerald Meerschaert, we know his ground game is always amazing, fighting out of Rufus Sport over there in Milwaukee. Again, though, it's a styles fight. It's a clash of styles. Gerald Meerschaert coming to this fight with a record of 31-14. Yeah, he's been fighting for a long time. Only 33 years old. It kind of seems like he's a little bit older, for being real here. Yeah, so Meerschaert, again, though, you gotta fish for a takedown. You gotta take Bartosz Fabinski down. You gotta be able to keep him down. Because we know Fabinski's offensive wrestling, very good. But once he gets on the mat, and Meerschaert's most likely, once Meerschaert gets on top of him, Fabinski's probably gonna be lost down there. That all being said, though, we're going Bartosz Fabinski. I just really haven't liked what I've seen out of Gerald Meerschaert in his last couple of fights. His chin is pretty damn bad. I know Khamzat Chimaev hit him with the really nice right hand, but he went down pretty quickly. In the Ian Heinisch fight, he went down pretty quickly as well. And I know Khamzat Chimaev and Ian Heinisch are top 20 fighters at the weight class, at 185. But I like Bartosz Fabinski in this fight, man. I think Fabinski's power is going to catch up to Meerschaert. Yes, Meerschaert can have some success on the ground, but I'm gonna go with the Bartosz Fabinski win here. I think he gets the job done by KO, and we're gonna say it's in the first round again. I hate to say that Gerald Meerschaert's gonna get knocked down the first round for the third straight time, but we gotta do what we gotta do. I'm gonna go Bartosz Fabinski first round KO in this fight. So we've got a fight here at 115 pounds. It is Lupita Godinez taking on Jessica Penne. We're gonna start first with Lupita Godinez. Yeah, okay, so Godinez coming to this fight, current record of 5-0. 5 pro fights, she's won all of them. In her last one, it was a very good win. She won the LFA Strawweight Championship with the majority decision win over Vanessa Demopoulos, former Contender Series fighter in Demopoulos. And it's a good one for Lupita Godinez. Coming off that win, obviously now into the UFC, and then before that, she fought in various promotions. She was the BTC Strawweight Champion. She fought in Combate as well. And yeah, 5-0 so far in her career. And Godinez, man, pretty solid on the ground, pretty solid on the feet as well. Just a very well-balanced fighter. Again, though, with only 5 pro fights, kind of tough to get it really just to know where we're going to be at in this fight. And considering Jessica Penne has not fought in 5 years as well, or in 4 years, this is another one of these fights is so tough to call. Godinez, though, has looked good in her last couple of fights. Again, winning the LFA Strawweight Championship is a very hard thing to do, and beating a fighter like Vanessa Demopoulos, who has been fighting for a very long time, has fought some of the best fighters in LFA. She's got a win most recently by KO in like 30 seconds a couple months ago on the Spike Carlisle card. I mean, Godinez beating Demopoulos is a very good win. And yeah, that's that. Coming to this fight with the record of 5-0. Let's talk about our opponent here in the former title challenger, Jessica Penne. So, where to get started on Jessica Penne? We talked about her when she was supposed to fight Hannah Goldy. Obviously, that fight fell through. Hannah Goldy had to pull out, but the last time Jessica Penne fought in a UFC octagon, Artem Lobov was the main event. He lost to Cub Swanson in the main event on that card over in Nashville, Tennessee. Penne lost that fight to Danielle Taylor, and Danielle Taylor, pretty solid fighter, is now out the UFC after she lost to Zhang Wei Li, but yeah, that was Jessica Penne's last fight. She is currently on a 3-fight losing streak. Before that, she got KO'd by Jessica Andrade, gonna happen to you, and then before that, she lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the strawweight championship. Pretty dominant performance for Joanna, winning that fight in the 3rd round. It was on Fight Pass, and it was in Germany, of course, for the 115-pound title. And before that, Penne got her title shot by beating Randa Marcos by split decision on the Ultimate Fighter finale card. Kind of weird to think, if Randa Marcos won that fight, Randa Marcos probably would have fought for the title as well. I think Joanna probably would have won that fight too, but it's just, I don't know, man. Jessica Penne hasn't fought in 4 years, and I talked about in the Goldie fight. What are we gonna get? I just don't know. It's gonna be 5 days short of 4 years when Jessica Penne steps in there to take on Lupita Godinez. Her ground game's pretty solid. Again, Jessica Penne, haven't seen her in 4 years, but when we did see her ground game was pretty good. Her stand-up game, not great if we're being honest. Held her own against Randa Marcos, who's a very good ground fighter. Again, that was 7 years ago, but she did hold her own in that fight and did put on a pretty good performance in that one to get her title shot, to become the #1 contender. But I just don't know what Jessica Penne we are going to get, and she's on a 3-fight losing streak, losing to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, tough fighter, of course, former champion Jessica Andrade, former champion Danielle Taylor, not on the same level as the previous two, but still a pretty good fighter as well. But the 4-year layoff is just so concerning. And again, I don't know where it's like the Zara Fairn and Josiane Nunes fight. It's so tough to call just because the inactivity at Jessica Penne and because Lupita Godinez, okay, yeah, she beat Vanessa Demopoulos, but other than that, not too many great wins. Again, only 5 pro fights on the record for Godinez. But still, I'm gonna pick her because, yeah, Jessica Penne's been out for 4 years. Taking the more active fight here, taking Lupita Godinez. Again, the Demopoulos win is huge. Just think about it. When Jessica Penne fought her last fight, Lupita Godinez was not a professional fighter yet. All right? When Jessica Penne lost to Danielle Taylor in April of 2017, at that time, Lupita Godinez was 0-2 as an amateur. Just think about that, right? Just honestly. Since then, Lupita Godinez, including her amateur bouts, right? Including her amateur bouts, she amateur and professional, she has had 11 fights to Jessica Penne's 0. I'm taking Lupita Godinez just because of that, just because of the activity from her. I liked what I saw in the Demopoulos fight. I think she's gonna win this one by decision. And next up, we've got Juan Espino taking on Alexander Romanov. What a fight this is gonna be. 2 heavyweights who are masters on the ground. This is going to be a very fun fight. We're gonna start first here with the former Ultimate Fighter winner. It is Juan Espino, and it took him a while to get into the UFC. After winning the Ultimate Fighter. He won the Ultimate Fighter in November of 2018. Did not make his UFC second fight, I guess, because the first fight was for the Ultimate Fighter finale. That is counted as a UFC fight. Second fight against Jeff Hughes was 2 years later on Adesanya Costa, and he got the job done by scarf hold in the first round against Hughes. So currently 2-0 in the UFC, Juan Espino, and we know his ground game is incredible. We saw him on the Ultimate Fighter season dominate Ben Sassoli on the ground, but then after that dominate Maurice Green on the ground, getting a submission finish by rear naked choke in the second round. And that was, hey, they were beefing before that fight, Espino and Maurice Green in the Ultimate Fighter house. And then before that, I mean, just pure excellence outside the UFC as well for Juan Espino, whose only loss in his career is to Vitaly Menkov. Yeah, the former Bellator heavyweight champion. That's his only loss. And that fight was a long time ago. It was in 2011, and Vitaly won that fight by 9 seconds. KO finish. So it's been a while. It was on a Russia versus Spain card, and Russia obviously won that one, but yeah, Espino, other than that, has been great. Current record for Espino of 10-1, and we know his ground game is incredible. His stand-up game, you don't see it often because Espino's always trying to get the fight on the ground. Same thing about Alexander Romanov, though. Romanov always wants to be on the ground as well, but if I had to give an advantage on the feet, I'm going to give it to Alexander Romanov. Romanov, we have seen, though, outside of the UFC, get some finishes on the feet, but in the UFC, it's just been takedowns, 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 and no one's been able to stop him on the ground. Well, meet your match. Juan Espino is the guy that could potentially stop Alexander Romanov on the ground. So we might see a different strategy in this fight for Romanov, but the strategy for Espino stays the same. You got to get this fight to the ground. I think you just do. Romanov is a very heavyweight. I mean, the dude cuts a little bit to get down to 265. Espino, about 250, 255. So it's a fun fight. I mean, consider Alexander Romanov used to fight super heavyweight. All right, so that's Juan Espino, though. Current record, again, though, 40 years old, something to note, but the former Ultimate Fighter winner currently holds a record of 10-1. Let's talk about his opponent in the undefeated Alexander Romanov. And yeah, Romanov last fight in the UFC. Goodness. I mean, it was a very dominant win over Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. Yeah, forearm choke. He just shoved his forearm to the throat of de Lima and just choked him out that way. He got him out and just, yeah, shoved his arm in his throat. Won the fight. The dude has some damn strength. I mean, Romanov, incredible grappler. In the Roque Martinez fight, more of the same. Got him to the ground, kept him on the ground. Arm triangle choke in the second round. And before the UFC, those fights in Moldova and the fights in Russia, Romanov has been spectacular. No one's really been able to touch this guy so far because of how good his ground game is and because his stand-up game is a little bit underrated. And I think in this fight against Juan Espino, I think Romanov's probably going to be able to try to take him down and try to finish him on the ground because that's what we want to see. Two very good grapplers, two very good submission specialists in the heavyweight division. You don't see it often, but they're going at it here tonight. And two guys who I would say prospects, but Espino's 40 years old. Romanov's 30, so there's that. But I think if I had to give an advantage on the feet, I'm giving it to Alexander Romanov. Romanov's got some power on the feet. Espino, you just don't see him there that often because he's always trying to clinch, he's always trying to grapple, he's always trying to get a fight to the ground. So Romanov, I don't think we're going to see it, but there might be a pathway for Romanov to win this fight by KO and keeping this fight standing. Now, on the ground, I just don't know because this is going to be so damn close on the ground, but I feel like someone's going to have the obvious advantage in this one on the ground, and we're going to find that out in the first 2 minutes. It's just a matter of who that is. Is it Espino? Is it Romanov? Whoever can get top position, I think is going to win this fight. And I think it's going to be Alexander Romanov. I think the strength of Alexander Romanov is going to be too much. I think this man is a big heavyweight. 6'2", 265. And the dude used to fight super heavyweight. And I think the power, even if this does stay standing, the power is going to be too much. Romanov's going to be able to win down there, up there. And if it gets to the ground, I know Espino's jiu-jitsu is very good, but to get the fight to the ground, I think Romanov's going to be the one to engage. If it does hit the mat, Romanov's going to try to use his wrestling against this one to the ground. Espino's going to be on his back, where he's good at, but Alexander Romanov is spectacular on top as well. I think Romanov's just going to be a little bit better. But again, this fight could go so many ways. It's a very fun fight, and especially, again, there's some heavyweight fights which, let's be honest, aren't that great, but this is a very good one. Romanov and Espino, the winner of this fight, you're looking at a potential top 15 fighter. All right, I know they're like top 20, top 25 guys currently, but the winner of this fight will most likely get a chance to fight a top 15 fighter. Who will it be? I don't know, but man, I mean, this is a big opportunity for one of these guys. Again, Espino won the Ultimate Fighter, Romanov 2-0 in the UFC. I like Romanov in this fight, though. I like him by TKO. Will it be ground and pound on the ground, or will it be by a finish while they're in the stand-up? I do not know, but I'm going to go with the TKO for Romanov. I'm going to say he gets it done in the first round. I think we get a first-round stoppage in this one. I think it's going to be Romanov, but I would not be surprised if Espino does get a submission off his back. I think Romanov's going to be too much. Give it to him by TKO in the first round. Now at women's flyweight, we have got Justine Kish taking on Tracy Cortez. We will start first with Justine Kish. So her last fight, she did lose by rear naked choke on the Waterson Hill card in Las Vegas to Sabina Mazo. And before that, she beat Pudilova by unanimous decision on Blaze dos Santos in North Carolina. Before that, lost a split decision fight to Ji-Yeon Kim. Before that, lost to Felice Herrig. And then before that, beat Ashley Yoder. And then before that, beat Nina Asfarov. And before that, actually beat Miranda Marcos as well. So Justine Kish did put together a pretty good winning streak right there. I mean, 3 wins right there. Marcos, Asfarov, Yoder, 3 really good fighters. But then she comes in, loses to Felice Herrig. All right, it's going to happen to you. Felice Herrig was ranked at one point in time. I don't believe during that fight, but it's going to happen again. Ji-Yeon Kim, solid fighter, and Sabina Mazo is pretty damn good. But my problem with that is Justine Kish is, I mean, she's a good kickboxer, but her ground game is not bad as well. My thing is, if you get submitted by Sabina Mazo, you're probably going to get submitted by Tracy Cortez, right? Cortez is very good on the ground. I mean, we saw her dominate Maria Agapova for 3 rounds basically by just having her back the entire fight. Now, she wasn't able to get a finish, but if you make one mistake, you're done in that fight. It's just concerning with Justine Kish. It really is. Again, she's currently in the UFC. She is sitting at a record of 3-3, but man, lost 3 out of your last 4. Mazo, Kim, Herrig, beat Pudilova. By unanimous decision. Scorecards on that fight, we have got 327s across the board. So Cortez's ground game is very good, man. Cortez has not lost since her first pro fight ever, which was in August of 2017. She's been undefeated since with 8 straight wins. Yeah, that's Justine Kish, though, currently standing at a record of 7-3. Let's talk about Tracy Cortez more. This is just a really good fight for Tracy Cortez, though. It is, because her last fight against Stephanie Egger was a good win. No one really had heard of Egger at the time, though. Wins that fight by unanimous decision over at Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. Before that, she beats Vanessa Melo by unanimous decision on Blakovic and Jacare in São Paulo, Brazil. And before that, beats Maria Agapova to get into the UFC by unanimous decision. Again, that fight, Tracy Cortez basically took her back from the contender and just kind of had her back for the entire fight. Dominated her on the ground. Maria Agapova in the UFC now. I mean, lost to Shanna Dobson, so there's that. But and then Cortez to get on the contender series, she beat Erin Blanchfield. Now, Erin Blanchfield was supposed to fight Norma Dumont last week. Obviously, that fight did not happen because Dumont could not make weight. But yeah, it's a good win for Cortez. A win over Erin Blanchfield is always good. Tracy Cortez's ground game is just great. I think it's so much better than Justine Kish, to the point where I feel really confident just saying right now, Tracy Cortez is going to win this fight. There's a reason she's a pretty big favorite on this card. If you look at the Tapology votes, Tracy Cortez, I do believe, is the biggest favorite out of all of the experts over there on Tapology. Yeah, 95% of the people who have put their predictions in on Tapology have Justine Kish losing the fight. They have Tracy Cortez. I'm not going against that. Tracy Cortez is going to win this fight. She's going to be able to take back pretty easily. I think of Justine Kish, she's going to fish for a takedown pretty early. I do believe she's going to be able to get that takedown early in the fight. I think she's going to be able to take back, and I'm going to go with her to win this fight probably by rear naked choke. Again, with Justine Kish, if you get submitted by Sabina Mazo, everything points to, all right, you're probably going to get subbed by Tracy Cortez as well. I think Cortez wins this one. If this fight stays on the feet the entire fight and Justine Kish can stuff a couple takedowns and use her kickboxing effectively, yeah, Kish will have a good chance to win this fight, but this is not a kickboxing fight. This is a mixed martial arts fight, and in an MMA fight, Tracy Cortez is the better MMA fighter. That's why I'm picking her to win this fight by submission. Now we've got Bill Algeo and Ricardo Ramos. Algeo is coming into this fight with a win over Spike Carlisle in his last fight. It was a good win for Algeo. I don't know why Carlisle got released by the UFC. Now in LFA, I'm glad he won his main event over there in that promotion. But yeah, Carlisle does lose that fight to Bill Algeo, and it's a pretty good one for Bill Algeo. Pretty dominant in that one over Carlisle, but it's always a fun fight, any fight with Spike Carlisle. And Algeo won that one, and he won that fight in a fight where Spike Carlisle wants to be in. Trading shots in the feet. Algeo did a pretty good job in that one. And then before that, he made his UFC debut against Ricardo Lamas. That was his first fight in the UFC, and yeah, they gave him Ricardo Lamas. I do believe Lamas was supposed to fight, I think it was Ryan Hall, if I'm not mistaken. And was it Bektic or Hall? It was one of those fighters. But yeah, Algeo lost to Lamas in that fight. And before that, he did fight in CFFC, and he did fight in the contender series as well. Lost to Brendan Laflahan. Laflahan, obviously a fighter now in PFL. Yeah, so Algeo got his shot there, lost, won a couple fights, actually only won one fight in CFFC, and then lost to Ricardo Lamas. Yeah, Algeo coming to this fight with a record of 14-5. Algeo, good all-around fighter. I think his ground game is probably his best. With that in the stand-up game, I think Algeo's ground game is better than his stand-up game, but his stand-up game is pretty solid as well. We saw him trade with Spike Carlisle at points to their fight, and he did do pretty well in some of those exchanges. The thing is, Ricardo Ramos's ground game is, I mean, you can't get that much better than Ricardo Ramos's ground game. So Algeo in this fight is probably gonna have to win this one on the feet. But Ricardo Ramos, we have seen in the past, has been solid on the feet. And yeah, we're really looking at the Ayman Zahabi fight where spinning elbow, I mean, that's my move in UFC 4, just spam the spinning elbows. Well, Ricardo Ramos landed it right on the dot, right on the button, and put down Ayman Zahabi, aka Ariel Helwani. But other than that, though, Ramos has been finished on the feet a couple times in the UFC. Said Nurmagomedov, alright, Said Nurmagomedov, very good fighter, very just a weird fighter on the feet to beat. Ramos got TKO'd in that fight with a spinning back kick, and then most recently, fighting against Leron Murphy, did lose that one by TKO on Cater and Ige in Abu Dhabi. I picked Ricardo Ramos to win that one. Obviously did not go our way, but I think Ramos on the feet, though, in this one, he has a chance against Algeo, but I'm going to give the slight advantage to Algeo. On the ground, I'm giving it to Ricardo Ramos. I mean, definitely. Ramos' ground game, very good. Black belt in BJJ, and yes, it does feel like everyone's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now, but Ramos is a real black belt. I know there are levels to that game in Jiu-Jitsu, but Ramos on the ground will have the advantage against Algeo. It's just a matter of, can he get that fight to the ground against Algeo? Because it's going to be tough for Ricardo Ramos. And yeah, he can stand with them, and he can strike with them. It just depends, man. I'm gonna go with Ricardo Ramos in this one ever so slightly though, because I do see a path to victory for Bill Algeo. I do. I mean, it's just keep the fight standing, use your reach in this one, and just out volume Ricardo Ramos and avoid the big power shot that Ramos will occasionally throw. But I think Ramos is gonna be able to just eventually get to this fight, just get this fight in the ground. I don't know if he's gonna be able to get a finish on Algeo, because Algeo is a very tough guy to finish on the ground, and we saw Brandon Laflahan put everything on him, given that fight was primarily a striking fight, and then at the end, Laflahan shot him for a takedown, didn't get the contract from Dana, and Algeo ended up in the UFC, and Laflahan's now in PFL, but that's a story for another day. Yeah, so Algeo, but that all being said, Algeo, very tough fighter to finish. I don't think Ramos will get a finish necessarily in this one. I think he'll win this one by decision, though, and it should be a good fight. Now, on the main card, we have got Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena, taking on Alex Munoz. Good fight here. Really fun fight at lightweight. We're going to start first with Alex Munoz. Last fight was a loss to Meerschaert Hakrapast in his debut in the UFC, but Meerschaert, a very good fighter. Brendan Fitzgerald called him Kelvin Gastelum in his last fight, but yeah, Meerschaert Hakrapast, very good fighter. Tough guy to beat. Munoz did all right in that fight, but in the end, Hakrapast won that one by unanimous decision. Before that, for Alex Munoz, he did win over in Hawaii. It was on Dana White looking for a fight. He got his contract by winning in the main event of that card over Troy Lamson. Good win, won that one by unanimous decision. Lamson, good fighter as well. Most recently just lost to Jesse Ronson, but Munoz, good win over Lamson. Before that, beat Nick Newell, and I know what you're thinking. All right, well, Nick Newell, he has one arm. He has one hand. But Nick Newell is the best fighter to ever walk this planet with only one arm. It's true. You know it is, right? So, and again, like, I know it was on the Contender and Dana gave him a shot, and Munoz was kind of Dana's guy. He was like, all right, well, because Dana White didn't want Nick Newell in the UFC. Let's be real. Alex Munoz went in there, got the job done, and eventually Dana came back, scouted him on looking for a fight, and he got into the UFC. But yeah, Munoz coming to this fight, record of 6-1. Alex Munoz, though, good stand-up game, solid ground game as well. A very well-rounded fighter is Alex Munoz, fighting at Team Alpha Male, obviously there in Sacramento, California. You got guys such as Uriah Faber over there. You got the Joseph Benavidez of the world. You got the Andre Fili's. You got the guys like that over there. You got Josh Emmett over there in Sacramento, California. So Munoz, a lot of good training partners over there. But yeah, Munoz, again, making his 8th walk in his professional career. But let's talk about his opponent now in Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. And Pena probably should have won his last fight. No, I know, like, when the fight was actually going, like, eventually, you thought he was going to lose that one, because Kamaworthy fought a very good fight against Violent Bob Ross in that one, and I know you might be down on Kamaworthy after his loss to Jimmy Mullarkey on UFC 260, but it was very quick knockout. But Luis Pena lost that fight to Kamaworthy. Before that, he beat Steve Garcia by unanimous decision over in Norfolk, Virginia. Before that, loses a very close fight, and I mean very close fight, to Matt Frivola. He got 29-28 two ways going to Frivola, one going to Violent Bob Ross, and Frivola got the job done over in Tampa. Before that, beat Matt Wyman by TKO, beat Steven Peterson, lost to Michael Trezano, and then before that, won his UFC debut by guillotine choke on the Ultimate Fighter finale show. And then, of course, he did fight in the Ultimate Fighter as well. And yeah, Bob Ross, or Violent Bob Ross, is a recognizable name. I mean, he's a guy a lot of people have seen. But hasn't been great his last couple fights. Again, lost 2 out of his last 3. We know how good Luis Pena's ground game is. It's very good, right? And Alex Munoz does have a pretty solid ground game as well. His stand-up game is good too. Both these guys just very well-rounded. It's a tough fight to call, but I'm going to go with Luis Pena to win this one. I just like the experience overall for Luis Pena. He's been in there with, I wouldn't say some of the best in the UFC, but some very good fighters. Matt Wyman, Frivola, and Kamaworthy stick out, right? So Munoz, again, the Meerschaert Hakrapast fight wasn't that close. Luis Pena has done pretty well against some solid fighters in the UFC, and I think if Pena can get this one on the ground, I think he's got the clear advantage on the ground in this one. I think his BJJ is going to be enough to win this fight against Alex Munoz. Fighting out of ATT, I think Luis Pena, Violent Bob Ross, is going to be able to get the job done. Do I think he's going to get a finish? Yeah, I think he's going to. I'm going to say Luis Pena will probably get a submission win here. I'll go second round sub win for Violent Bob Ross, getting back in the win column. He'll move to a record of 9-3, but it is just tough to call a Luis Pena fight, because going to the Kamaworthy fight, I was like, all right, if he can just get this one on the ground, he's going to be able to get the job done. No, Kamaworthy did pretty well wrestling against Luis Pena and did pretty well grappling against Luis Pena as well. So I do see a very good upset potential here in Alexander Munoz. I really do see it. Munoz can use his wrestling and he can get this fight to the ground. round, and maybe he will have some points where you think he's going to beat Luis Pena, but in the end, I think just all around Pena is just a little bit better. I think his ground game is going to be able to win him this fight. So again, Pena with the second round submission. Now we've got a fight between Abdul Razak Alhassan and Jacob Malkoun over the middleweight division. We will start first here with Jacob Malkoun. There's not much to talk about because Jacob Malkoun last fight, all right, he's on a pay-per-view. He's on the same card as Justin Gaethje, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier. He's on the main card. You had to pay to watch Phil Hawes fight Jacob Malkoun. And Jacob Malkoun all week was being brought up as the guy, all right, he trains with Robert Whittaker. Whittaker kind of got him into the promotion. High hopes for Jacob Malkoun coming into that fight. I picked Phil Hawes, by the way, just saying. Phil Hawes knocked him out in 18 seconds. Right? So Hawes just kind of rushed across the octagon, eventually just threw a big combination in there and put Jacob Malkoun down. Malkoun didn't do anything in that fight. My problem with Jacob Malkoun coming into that fight was he only had 4 pro fights. The Phil Hawes fight was his 5th pro fight in the UFC, and you're on a main card of a pay-per-view, and Phil Hawes had double the amount of experience that Jacob Malkoun did have going into that fight. And yeah, we knew Malkoun was a good striker, and you gotta be a good striker to train with one of the best middleweights on the planet, but it's just a little bit different, man. It really is. Of course, Jacob Malkoun is not Robert Whittaker. Again, he's 4-1, only 5 pro fights. It seemed a little bit rushed getting Jacob Malkoun in the UFC. It just really did. I would like to see him more outside of the promotion because he was fighting in Australia, in various promotions in Australia, right? He's 4-0. Takes a year off, then he gets on a pay-per-view card. The timing felt weird. It just felt, okay, Whittaker's on this card. Let's get his training partner on this card, on the same damn main card to on the pay-per-view portion of the card. And again, we know the outcome. Phil Hawes won that fight in 18 seconds. Now, Jacob Malkoun's fighting Abdul Razak Alhassan, a guy who has been knocked out twice in a row now. Or no, he didn't get knocked out by Munoz, but he took a beating in that fight. The Chaos Williams fight was kind of like Jacob Malkoun and Phil Hawes, but Chaos Williams just threw a right and put down Abdul Razak Alhassan for about 4 minutes, to the point where Michael Bisping said it was kind of scary in the apex. Right? Also something to note, Abdul Razak Alhassan is fighting at middleweight now. He did miss weight at 170 his last 2 fights. He's going up for this fight against Jacob Malkoun. So I think we're going to see a finish in this one. I think, we got to see it, right? Abdul Razak Alhassan, we're going to talk about him in a second here, though. He's never seen the final. He's never seen the 3rd round, other than that one fight against Munoz that finished in a decision. Other than that, they've all been knockouts in the 1st and 2nd rounds. So we're guaranteed a good fight here. Like every Abdul Razak Alhassan fight, you're going to see a fun fight. It's just Jacob Malkoun, though, he's so unproven, man. He really is. 4 wins outside the UFC, and now he's taking on a guy who's been knocking people's heads off. And I know you might be down on Abdul Razak Alhassan because of his last couple fights, but the dude's such an amazing striker still. So that's Jacob Malkoun. Again, he's only 4-1. Let's talk about Abdul Razak Alhassan. Yeah, the Abdul Razak Alhassan fight with Chaos Williams was weird. Because I think Dana White said this. Chaos Williams did to Abdul Razak Alhassan what Abdul Razak Alhassan does to everyone else. Right? You just come in there, throw a couple of strikes, and end the night. It was a weird finish because Abdul Razak Alhassan, it didn't seem that, it was a hard punch, don't get me wrong, but Chaos Williams, it just seemed like he kind of just touched him. And Abdul Razak Alhassan went out, and he was out for a while. It cut to commercial break, and he was still, I think he was still, trying to get he was just trying to get back together. It was kind of weird. And again, Bisping, going back to what Bisping said, it was kind of scary because he was down for a very long time. It's a little bit concerning, but Abdul Razak Alhassan, again, coming back, it's been, 6 months? So I feel like it has been the right amount of time. My thing with Abdul Razak Alhassan, I've seen him knock out some of the best guys in the weight class. Well, the guy I'm talking about is Nico Price. He knocked out Nico Price, UFC 228 in Dallas, Texas, Tyrone Woodley versus Darren Till. Good win in that one. That was the best Abdul Razak Alhassan we've ever seen. And then after that, he had his whole legal troubles. I'm not going to get into that in this video. You can go look him up if you want. But long story short, he was found not guilty, so good on that. But comes back, loses to Munir Lazzez in a good fight. Lazzez put it on him, though. Munir Lazzez lost his last fight. We're not going to talk about that one either. But Razak Alhassan looked all right in that one. Looked good at the beginning of that fight and towards the very end. But again, it was not enough to win that one. You got 30-27s and 29-28s in that one. I scored 29-28 for Munir Lazzez. The other judges had it 30-27. But what do I know? I'm not an MMA judge. I'm not Chris Lee. And the Chaos Williams fight, again, I just talked about it. Weird, right? Another thing, Abdul Razak Alhassan, fought Omar Akhmedov to a split decision. That was his other decision fight. Forgot to mention that one earlier. So there's that, right? If Abdulrazak Alhassan can't beat Jacob Malkoun in this stage of his career, he shouldn't be in the UFC. That being said, he's not going to lose to Jacob Malkoun. Like, this is my lock of the week. Like, Abdulrazak Alhassan, this is a lock, dude. There's no chance to lose to Jacob Malkoun. There is no chance in hell. Abdulrazak Alhassan, this fight's going to stay on the feet. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I don't think we're going to see this one hit the mat. And Abdulrazak Alhassan's got all the power in the world. He's going to knock out Jacob Malkoun in the first round. I just don't like Jacob Malkoun in this spot again. I feel like Abdulrazak Alhassan is just too good. It feels like a fight that they're trying to get Abdulrazak Alhassan back on track, because when he is on his A game, he's a very fun fighter and he does produce a lot of highlight knockout finishes. So again, with all of that, Abdulrazak Alhassan is going to win this fight. First round KO. He's going to get back on track after those two losses to Munir Lazzez and to Chaos Williams. I think he's going to be able to get back in the win column in this one. He's a big favorite for a reason. Malkoun with only 5 pro fights, it just feels like a mismatch. So we're going with Abdulrazak Alhassan. Next up in the heavyweight division, we have got Chase Sherman, the Vanilla Gorilla, taking on Andre Pitbull Arlovski. We're going to start first here with Chase Sherman. So Sherman, we'll start with this first round in the UFC. Comes into the UFC 2016, loses his first fight to Justin Ledet. Not a great loss when you look back at it now, but it's okay. Then he loses to Walt Harris by KO on the Yair Rodriguez BJ Penn card in Phoenix, Arizona in 2015. They did that fight, didn't they? Yikes. After that, Chase Sherman beats Rashad Coulter. All right, wins that one by an elbow KO finish on UFC 211. JDS Stipe Miocic. After that, picks up a win over Damian Grabkowski on Chris Weidman and Kelvin Gastelum. Then after that, he goes to Shanghai, China to get KO'd by Shamil Abdurakhimov. All right, Abdurakhimov, I guess a top 10 heavyweight right now. That was on Bisping Gastelum. Then after that, loses to Justin Pretty Boy Willis by unanimous decision. Then loses to Augusto Sakai. So it was a tough run of guys that Chase Sherman did fight in the UFC in his first round. You got Walt Harris, top 15 fighter. Abdurakhimov, top 15 fighter. Justin Willis, if he was still in the UFC, I would say he's a borderline top 15 guy. He's in the PFL. We'll see how he does in that season upcoming. And then Augusto Sakai, top 15 fighter, potentially even top 10 with the UFC cutting down on some of their heavyweights. Of course, JDS and Alistair Overeem. So Sherman goes in, he goes to Island fights, he wins 3 straight fights, all by TKO, and then he comes back, he fights on the Wednesday card, Glover Teixeira, Anthony Lionheart-Smith, May of 2020 in Jacksonville, Florida, and he does pick up a win over Ike Villanueva by TKO. Good win over Ike Villanueva. Ike Villanueva, by the way, picked up one over Vinicius Moreira in his last fight. But yeah, Sherman comes back, he wins that fight. It's the first fight on that card, and it's a good win. Chase Sherman's stand-up game is good. He did fight in bare knuckle as well. I believe he went 1-1 there, or no, he went 1-0 at bare knuckle. Sorry, he went 1-1-1. He did lose to Joey Beltran in his last fight in 2019. He was the former BKFC heavyweight champion, so there is that. So Sherman looked good in the Ike Villanueva fight, though. He did look very good in that one, and we did talk about it. His fights in the UFC were tough fights. I mean, his losses, Justin Ledet, all right, doesn't really compare to the names that I'm about to say. Walt Harris, Abdurakhimov, Justin Willis, Augusto Sakai, good fighters. So Sherman against Andre Arlovski, though, you've got to be able to get to Andre Arlovski and inflict a lot of power against Arlovski, because we have seen Arlovski's chin is, I wouldn't say completely gone, but it's kind of gone. He's been knocked out 11 times in his career. That's just kind of concerning, just maybe, just a little bit concerning, right? So Sherman's got to be able to touch him early. He's got to be able to put him down early. Do I think he's going to be able to? Potentially, yeah, but Andre Arlovski, again, we count him out so many damn times. Felipe Lins, Tanner Boser, I picked those two guys to beat Andre Arlovski, and Andre Arlovski did what he does. So that's Chase Sherman coming to this fight with a record of 15-6. Let's talk about the former UFC heavyweight champion and Andre Arlovski. So again, I picked Tom Aspinall to beat Andre Arlovski most recently. Thankfully, I didn't get that one wrong. I was pretty confident that Tom Aspinall was going to beat Andre Arlovski. He did. He beat him on the feet in the first round, eventually got the rear naked choke in the second round. Arlovski tapped pretty quick, knew that he wasn't going to get out of that choke. Good win for Tom Aspinall. But yeah, I picked against him in the Felipe Lins fight, picked against him in the Tanner Boser fight. I mean, Felipe Lins coming off the PFL, $1 million winner, thought he was going to beat Andre Arlovski. No, Andre Arlovski pieced together Felipe Lins in that fight. Really did really well in that one. Final scorecards on that fight, we have got 30-27s, 2 judges to Arlovski, and then 129-28 going to Arlovski as well. In the Tanner Boser fight, well, Tanner Boser's coming off a win where he knocks out Felipe Lins. You're thinking big things out of Tanner Boser. No, Andre Arlovski Was it a boring fight? Yes, it was very boring. 29-28 across the board for Arlovski. It was a boring fight, but he did pick up the victory. And yeah, I feel like I mention the same stuff every time I talk about Andre Arlovski. I feel like I do. I mean, they always give him the guys that they know are going to be good, and they give him the Francis Ngannous of the world, they give him the Stipes of the world before these guys are champions, right? They give him guys like when Marcin Tybura was being built up, Tai Tuivasa, Abdurakhimov, Walt Harris, Tagusa Sakai, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Felipe Lins, Tanner Bozer, guys that you think Andre Arlovski are going to lose to, and guys that you want to beat Andre Arlovski, because if you beat Andre Arlovski, you beat a former UFC champion, you're only thinking bigger things from there. Andre Arlovski does beat some of these guys, given he did lose to Stipe, did lose to Overeem, did lose to Ngannou, did lose to Abdurakhimov, did lose to Tuivasa, did lose to Tagusa Sakai, did lose to Rozenstruik, but beat Felipe Lins and beat Tanner Bozer most recently, so he has looked good against some of these prospects in the past. Chase Sherman is another one of these prospects who's going to throw a lot. He's going to try to beat him on the feet like Tanner Bozer and like Felipe Lins. It's a very similar fight in that sense, right? Because Chase Sherman, very powerful puncher. And yes, Arlovski has been knocked out 11 times in his career, but he still can somewhat take a punch. He did take some bumps from Felipe Lins in the first round of their fight. He stood on his feet, did pretty well in that one. Arlovski, again, the former UFC champion. We say it every time he does fight. He was the champion. How long ago at this point? He was the UFC champion. The last time he held that title was in July of 2006. So it's been just a little while, right? I'm going to do it though. I'm picking Andre Arlovski in this fight. First time I've ever picked Andre Arlovski on this channel, so write that down right now. I picked against him 3 times. I'm not going to do it again though. I like this matchup for Andre Arlovski. Chase Sherman is good, but I think Arlovski is just a little bit better. Chase Sherman, again, has fought some very good fighters, but I think Andre Arlovski is going to be, again, one of these good fighters Chase Sherman has fought and that Andre Arlovski is going to beat. I have Andre Arlovski winning this fight by unanimous decision. I think he's going to be able to use volume on Chase Sherman. He's not going to be able to he's not going to get hit with one of those big bombs thrown by Sherman. He's going to avoid those. He's going to just purely outstrike and outpoint Chase Sherman in this fight, going with the pit bull to win this one by unanimous decision. Now we have got a fight here between Jeremy Stephens, coming back for the first time since May of last year, taking on Dakota Bush, who's fighting for the first time since March of last year. Both of these guys coming off pretty brutal knockouts. Both those knockouts were, I would say, knockout of the year contenders. Obviously, Beneil Dariush's was more notable over Dakota Bush because Dakota Bush had that fight in the bag and he ended up losing it. And we're going to start with Dakota Bush here. Again, that last fight against Beneil Dariush, he was winning that fight UFC 248 in Las Vegas, Adesanya Romero. And then eventually, Dariush comes back and just completely unloads on Dakota Bush and puts him away. Go watch that fight if you haven't yet. Incredible comeback by Beneil Dariush. Before that, Dakota Bush comes in the UFC, loses his first fight in the UFC, beats Devin Powell, beats Mark DeCasey, loses to David Timur, goes on a 3-fight winning streak. Most notable wins of Orlando Groovy Venata and Bobby Green. Good win over there in Milwaukee. UFC on Fox, Lee versus Iaquinta 2. So Dakota Bush has been saying, though, he's going to test free agency after this fight. He was supposed to fight Jai Herbert in February of this year. He had Klose had to pull out though due to a positive COVID test. Klose is saying though he's going to most likely test free agency after this fight. He might leave the UFC. Well, if he's going to leave the UFC, he's going to test free agency. If you want big value, you got to go out and you got to beat a guy such as Jeremy Stephens, who has a big name, who has fought in the UFC for a very long time. He's been fighting the promotion since 2007 July 2007. This is a fight you got to win if you are Dakota Bush. If you want that value to be high going into free agency, coming to this fight with a record of 11 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Good power from Dakota Bush. He's a very good stand-up fighter. You're not going to see him on the ground that often. You're not going to see Jeremy Stephens on the ground that often. So it's going to be a stand-up fight. These two are going to bang in the middle of the octagon. So yeah, that's Dakota Bush. Talk about his opponent here in the UFC, veteran Jeremy Stephens. And yeah, Stephens did get brutally knocked down in his last fight against Calvin Kattar on UFC 249. Stephens is trying to close the distance in that one, and then Calvin Kattar, while Stephens is on his way in, perfectly times an elbow, puts down Stephens and ends the night for him. That fight was at 145. Stephens did miss weight. He weighed in at 150.5 in that fight, and now Jeremy Stephens, as a result of that, is now going up to lightweight to fight Dakota Bush. When was the last time Jeremy Stephens did fight a lightweight? You got to go back to December of 2012, where he lost to Yves Edwards by KO on the Benson Henderson versus Nate Diaz card for the lightweight championship. complete domination in that fight, by the way, by Benson Henderson. But that was the last time Jeremy Stephens has fought at 155. So it has been a damn long time for Jeremy Stephens. But Jeremy Stephens, of course, has fought the best of the best in the UFC. You want to go over the names: Dean Thomas, RDA, Joe Lazone, Gleison Tebow, okay, Anthony Pettis, Melvin Gillard, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Cub Swanson, Darren Elkins, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Henan Barao, Frank Yeager, Neto Moicano, Gilbert Melendez, Doohoo Choi, Josh Emmett, Jose Aldo, Zabit Magomed-Sharipov, Yair Rodriguez ×2, Calvin Kattar. Those are some damn names, man. Been fighting in the promotion since UFC 71, May of 2007. The main event of that card was Chuck the Iceman Liddell losing his light heavyweight championship to Quinton Rampage Jackson. I mean, it has been a while for Jeremy Stephens in the promotion. It really has. He's fought the best guys. I know he has not looked great in his last couple of fights. He hasn't won since he knocked out Josh Emmett. Really good knockout, by the way, in Orlando. In the main event of their card on Fox. That's the last time he won, was February of 2018, and before that beat Doohoo Choi, an amazing fight, by the way, in St. Louis, Missouri, in another main event. But it has been a while for Jeremy Stephens. But think about the guys he's fought recently. Jose Aldo fought a very good fight in that fight. Zabit Magomed-Sharipov, I mean, that dude might be a champion in a couple years. Yair Rodriguez, I know he's on suspension, but tough fights. Of course, the first one ended in an eye poke in 15 seconds. Not going to talk about that one. And the Calvin Kattar fight. Well, Calvin Kattar, no matter what happened in the Max Holloway fight, he got dominated. Calvin Kattar is a tremendous fighter. Jeremy Stephens, I would not look past him in this one if you're Dakar Klose. Stephens is a good fighter, man. And again, I know he's fought so many damn times. He's 28-18. That's not the record you're looking for. But I think in this fight, the experience is going to pay off. I think Jeremy Stephens is going to be able to win this fight over Dakar Klose. I think this is a levels fight. Dakar Klose coming off a loss to Beneil Dariush is going to go take on Jeremy Stephens. I like the veteran in this one. I like the experience of Jeremy Stephens. I think he's going to be able to get the job done in this one. And I think he's going to be able to get a finish of Dakar Klose here. I think we're going to see a good fight. This has got fight of the night written all over it, though. It really does. These two are going to throw, and I'm going to go with Jeremy Stephens to get the job done. I'm going to say a late TKO finish for Stephens. Give it to him in the third round. I cannot wait for this fight, though. This one is going to be spectacular. So it is time. It is time for the main event of the evening. We have got Kelvin Gastelum taking on the former middleweight king in Robert Whittaker. What a main event we do have. This fight was supposed to take place originally at UFC 234. Obviously, these two were the Ultimate Fighter coaches. They coached that entire season. You get to fight day, they weighed in, and then Robert Whittaker has to pull out at the very last minute due to a hernia. Unfortunate circumstances for Kelvin Gastelum, because then after that, he's got to fight Israel Adesanya for the interim championship, obviously, because Adesanya beat Anderson Silva to get the shot at the title. Gastelum loses, and he's been on a tough road ever since, but most recently did come back and pick up a win over Ian Heinisch. And we're going to start with Kelvin Gastelum. That Ian Heinisch win was a very big win, getting him back on track at UFC 258, a pay-per-view card on a pay-per-view main card. Kelvin Gastelum, leading up to that fight, was saying, hey, I got to win this fight or I might not have a job in the promotion after this. I didn't think that was entirely true. I think they probably would have given Kelvin Gastelum another fight after. I think they probably would have given him a tune-up fight, because Dana White does seem to really like Kelvin Gastelum. He really does. Every time Kelvin Gastelum is mentioned, Dana White always says, this guy's never in a boring fight. He's always in a good fight. He likes Kelvin Gastelum, obviously, because he won the Ultimate Fighter. Gastelum, very fun fighter to watch. So I don't think he would have got cut there, but I'm glad he won that fight against Ian Heinisch, because we're getting this main event now. And if, again, Paulo Costa was originally in this main event, he got COVID. Let's hope Paulo Costa is all right. I think he is, but hopefully he doesn't drink too much wine. But again, props to Gastelum, though, for stepping in and taking this fight. Let's talk about Gastelum's UFC run, though. Comes in, wins the Ultimate Fighter, was not supposed to win that season, beat Uriah Hall by split decision. Yeah, he won the fight. Him and Uriah Hall are good buds now, though, and training partners, so that's cool. But Gastelum, since then, beats Rick Story, beats Jake Ellenberger, gets a big fight against Tyron Woodley, misses weight in that card, and Woodley wins that one by split decision. Gastelum, after that, beats Nate Marquardt, loses to Neil Magny, beats Johnny Hendricks at UFC 200, then beats Tim Kennedy, beats Vitor Belfort, loses to Chris Weidman in a fight that Gastelum had. He knocked down Chris Weidman over in Uniondale, New York. And yeah, Weidman comes back, uses his wrestling and arm triangles him in that third round of their fight. Very fun fight. Go watch that one. UFC on Fox, just because of how in the fight the crowd is. Obviously in Weidman's hometown, basically. And then after that, Gastelum was supposed to fight Anderson Spider Silva. Silva has to pull out. In comes Michael Bisping, 9 days after losing to, or 14 days after losing to GSP. Gastelum knocks out Bisping. Mike should have not been in that fight. It was in Shanghai, China. Bisping got a good payday. Gastelum rises up to the #1 contender. After that, beats Jacare de Souza by split decision, UFC 224. Then he's supposed to get the title fight. Coaches the Ultimate Fighter season with Robert Whittaker. Again, the hernia happened. Gastelum fights Israel Adesanya, and Adesanya is probably toughest fight to date other than Jan Blachowicz. We're talking about middleweight. Israel Adesanya, maybe his toughest fight. Could say Marvin Vettori, but it was a fun fight and a tough fight for Izzy. Gastelum took some big punches in that one and delivered some big punches to Adesanya in that fight as well. After that fight's Darren Till, split decision loss. Close fight, but Gastelum, I thought Till won, but Gastelum did hold his own pretty well in that one. Loses to Jack Hermanson after that one, just gets caught in a heel hook. It's that simple, he just gets caught. It's going to happen to you with Jack Hermanson, such a good jiu-jitsu player. And then after that, beats Ian Heinisch by unanimous decision. Good win for Gastelum on UFC 258. Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, 30-27, 29-28, 29-28 for Gastelum in that fight. But then he's now going to take on the #1 contender in Robert Whittaker. Gastelum, though, in this one, how does he win this fight? I think he's got to use his wrestling. I don't think Kelvin Gastelum is going to be able to stand with Robert Whittaker. It's not going to happen. And I know Whittaker's wrestling and ground game is good, but Kelvin Gastelum's is better. Gastelum does not use his wrestling as much as he should. Now, he went back to it a lot in the Ian Heinisch fight, and he did pretty well in the Ian Heinisch fight. That's got to be the path to victory for Kelvin Gastelum in this one. It's got to be, you got to use your wrestling, you got to wear on Robert Whittaker in this one. You cannot rely on the striking. And Kelvin Gastelum sometimes he does rely on his hands too much. He shouldn't. He should always go back to his wrestling more than he does, and that's what he has to do to beat Robert Whittaker. Coming into this fight for Kelvin Gastelum, current record of 16-6, finally getting the Robert Whittaker fight he's been waiting for a very long time. Hey, was supposed to fight him for the championship, not getting that fight, but with this fight for Kelvin Gastelum, this puts him, if he beats this fight with Robert Whittaker, Kelvin Gastelum is one fight away from the championship. Who would he fight? Would it be a Paulo Costa? Would it be a Jared Cannonier? Would it be a Derek Brunson? I don't know, but it's going to be a big fight for Kelvin Gastelum after this. Would he get a title shot? I doubt it, but hey, with the win here, Kelvin Gastelum will most likely be the #1 and #2 contender. That's just how it works. You beat the #1 guy, you usually take his ranking. I don't think he'll go all the way to 1, but he would definitely be in the top 3 of the weight class. It's such a big opportunity for Kelvin Gastelum, but it's not like Robert Whittaker has nothing to win here either. Because I still think if Robert Whittaker wins this fight, he should get a title shot. It is not his fault Paulo Costa is not fighting anymore on this card. And Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson, I don't think Derek Brunson is getting a title shot. Let's be real here. But Marvin Vettori beats Kevin Holland. All right, Derek Brunson gave him the blueprint on how to beat Kevin Holland. It's true. I said that in my video last week, or yeah, it was last week. I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. I wanted Holland to win, but Vettori uses wrestling, took down Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland should go to AKA and work on his wrestling. I think Kevin Holland's got just a bright future. He's going to be a very good fighter. Kevin Holland will be in the top 10 for years to come. But Vettori fought that fight well, but it was the second time Kevin Holland was beaten in the last 3 weeks. Robert Whittaker beating Kelvin Gastelum might not be his most impressive win over his last 3 fights, but Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, and Kelvin Gastelum, hey, they wanted to give a title shot to Darren Till after a win over Robert Whittaker. They wanted to give a title shot to Jared Cannonier. Adesanya was calling out Jared Cannonier. If you beat Robert Whittaker, if you destroy Robert Whittaker, you're going to get a title shot. No, Whittaker I wouldn't say destroyed, but he beat Cannonier in that fight. It's a good fight, too. Go watch that one. So, it's not like this is the most impressive win for Robert Whittaker, but I feel like if Whittaker wins this fight, you'll win a fight, you're on a 3-fight winning streak, you're a former champion, give him the rematch with Adesanya. That being said, it's a tough fight against Kelvin Gastelum because Whittaker is going to be tested here. Now, it's not going to be the same test it's not the test you're looking for if you're preparing for Adesanya, though. It's not, because Gastelum, totally different game plan. Gastelum going to look here, and again, I said it earlier, Kelvin Gastelum's got to look for a takedown on this one, right? I don't think he's going to try to stand with Robert Whittaker for a long time in this fight. So you're going to see some of the takedown defense of Robert Whittaker, which we have not seen too much of. We saw it a little bit against Yoel Romero, but we haven't seen it in great detail, like we will in this fight, because Gastelum will test Robert Whittaker's wrestling. He will in this fight. But Whittaker's going to test Kelvin Gastelum's striking too, and I think if there's any clear advantage in this one, it's Robert Whittaker's striking. Whittaker's striking was on full display in the Darren Till fight, and it was on full display in the Jared Cannonier fight, and it just shows you how damn good this guy is. Jared Cannonier coming off a brutal KO finish to Jack Hermanson. Darren Till coming off a good win over Kelvin Gastelum. Whittaker put those guys down in that fight. The way he worked his 1-2, leading it to a head kick, putting down Jared Cannonier, having him wobble him, doing the chicken dance. Whittaker's striking is so on point and it is so damn good. And the only bad night he has had in the last 7 years is that one night against Adesanya, and I think he deserves the rematch. I think you know where I'm going with this one. I got Robert Whittaker to win this fight. I think he deserves that shot against Adesanya. I've seen this guy beat the best of the best in the division. Derek Brunson, Uriah Hall, Jacare, Yoel Romero twice, Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, and I think we're going to be adding Kelvin Gastelum to that list. I just don't think the wrestling is going to be enough for Gastelum. I think Whittaker knows that Gastelum's going to be able to try. He's going to try to shoot multiple times in this fight, try to work him in the clinch, use some of his upper body throws. Whittaker's got to know this. I mean, he's trained for this guy before. Whittaker knows what Gastelum's going to present. If he keeps the fight standing, he's going to win this one. You saw him beat down Darren Till. You saw him beat down Jared Cannonier. And it's not like those fights were complete mismatches. No, those were competitive fights. And I expect this fight to be competitive as well. But I like Robert Whittaker in this fight. I really do. I think out of the 3 fights with Till and Cannonier and Gastelum, I think this is the fight that he has the easiest path to victory in, because Jared Cannonier can shut the lights off with one damn strike. Same with Darren Till. Don't get me wrong, Kelvin Gastelum can as well, but he's a slower striker compared to Darren Till and Jared Cannonier, and of course, the champion Israel Adesanya. So I like Robert Whittaker in this fight. Now, I don't think it's the perfect fight for Robert Whittaker preparing for Adesanya, considering I think if Whittaker fights Adesanya next, he's going to use his wrestling. Right? I think he's going to try to take down Adesanya since what Jan Blachowicz did to him. And no, Robert Whittaker's not going to have 40 pounds on Israel Adesanya on fight night. But still, that's kind of going to be the game plan for Whittaker in a potential rematch with Adesanya. We know that's going to be the game plan for Marvin Vettori if he does get that fight as well. So that's why Costa would be different, because Whittaker, we might see him use his wrestling if he's going to try to get ready for an Adesanya fight. But if you got to get the title, you got to get the title fight no matter what. And hey, yeah, this is a better fight for Whittaker than Paulo Costa. It is, because Costa could come out there and he could just throw a big flurry of strikes and put down Robert Whittaker in the first round. That could happen. Gastelum's not going to be the same thing. I think Whittaker's going to be the smarter fight in this one. I think he's going to be able to take this fight a little bit slower. It's back in a 5-round spot though for Whittaker. He's been in this spot so many damn times. He's going to use his striking to his advantage. And Robert Whittaker most likely will win this fight by unanimous decision. I'm going to go 49-46s across the board. I think Gastelum will steal a round. Will it be the first round? Maybe. I think Gastelum might be able to get out to a good first round, but in the end, Whittaker is going to find his range. He's going to find his timing, and Whittaker is going to win 2, 3, 4, and 5, and he's going to stroll to a 49-45 victory, 49-46 victory in this one. Will he get a 10-8? Maybe he will. Maybe it will be 49-45, but I think going to get 4 rounds to 1 for the Reaper, Robert Whittaker, and get this man another title shot. It is the fight to make. Whittaker Adesanya 2. Let's make it happen. I'm going with Robert Whittaker by unanimous decision, but it should be a good fight. But you're going to see how good Robert Whittaker's striking is and how good his timing and how accurate the man is. So, folks, thank y'all for watching my UFC preview and predictions here for Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum. Again, don't forget, if you are a fan of Bellator, go check out my Bellator preview and predictions with Vadim Nemkov and Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis. And again, if you have not yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below for more UFC and MMA here on the channel. Leave a comment if you do disagree with any of my picks. Also, make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Again, folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.